I think this would be a very bad result for Australia if Albanese won a majority at this election, simply because on any measure it's been a bad first-term government. Government spending has skyrocketed at an unbelievable rate from virtually 24% of GDP to 27% of GDP. Industrial relations has gone backwards with a re-regulation of the labour market with a pro-union bias. Productivity has flatlined. The government has done precisely nothing on defence. The world is collapsing all around us. China, Russia, Iran and North Korea are forming a tight axis as China continues the biggest military build-up in peacetime. Russia is active in our region. We've been militarily humiliated by the Chinese, forcing our airliners to change their routes in the Trans-Tasman route, and then the Chinese Navy circumnavigating Australia, and our pathetic, dismal Navy couldn't even keep up with them. Our sailors aren't pathetic and dismal, but they've been handed pathetic and dismal equipment. Now, if that record wins a government a return of majority status, that would be a very bad lesson for Australian politics. It's also the case that very rarely do first-term governments increase their majority in the second term. Now, Albanese won very narrowly last term. You couldn't say he was a really successful opposition leader. The two previous opposition leaders who won from opposition, Kevin Rudd and Tony Abbott, had sweeping, numerically big victories when they came into office. When Albanese won, the electorate was determined to get rid of Scott Morrison and the Liberals, but it wasn't much enamoured of Albanese. So he started off in a mediocre position in the polls, and if out of all of that he is able to secure majority government, the message is to any future government, just spend wildly. It doesn't matter how irresponsibly. Neglect defence, that doesn't matter. None of these things will impose a penalty on you. You can go off on crazy woke ventures like The Voice.
It's about recognition and it's about consultation. That is what it's about, and that's what we need to deliver.
Lose dismally and still retain majority support in the parliament. Now, two other things about that. If Albanese does get majority status, or indeed minority government status, this will be partly attributable to the effect of Donald Trump on the election. After Trump was elected, it seemed that a political leader who could say, I will have a better relationship with Trump, that was an advantage. So Peter Dutton could argue, I'll get a phone call through to Trump, Anthony Albanese won't. And indeed, Anthony Albanese's inability to get a phone call to Trump has been quite striking. But since Trump introduced so much instability with his wild tariff moves, and since he acted so contemptibly towards Ukraine and its president, Volodymyr Zelensky, as we saw with the Canadian results, Trump has really hurt the centre-right all over the democratic world. Their bad left-wing governments can paint their opponents as dangerous and mini-Trumps, and they can win votes by being naturally non-Trump, whereas the Conservatives have to make an effort to distinguish themselves from Trump while at the same time retaining the support of that element of their base which is sympathetic to Trump. So that would be a very big effect of Trump. The other thing is, if Albanese wins majority government, that almost certainly means that Dutton has either gone nowhere or even gone backwards in the vote. In that case, Dutton is probably gone as opposition leader. Then the Liberals have a big question. They could falsely think that they've failed because Dutton was too conservative and too right-wing. And that's wrong. The Liberals do need to be contemporary. They do need to appeal to women. They need a better outreach to youth. But the only time Dutton got a huge surge of support was when he took a clear conservative position on The Voice and said, I don't want any racial division in Australia and in the Australian Constitution. And he won a huge victory. He unleashed his best performer, Senator Jacinta Price, and he won a huge victory. But he came to that position very reluctantly and was really forced into that position by Senator Price and the Nationals. It's been a very poor campaign by both sides, especially by the Liberals. Their best front benchers, Andrew Hastie and Dan Tehan, have been invisible in the campaign, while very mediocre front benchers have had the running of the campaign. Senator Price, given this bizarre responsibility of improving government efficiency instead of a more mainstream portfolio responsibility, and it looked like an imitation of the Elon Musk Department of Government Efficiency in the United States. So if the Liberals go backward in this election, they face an even bigger crisis than they faced last time. Not necessarily an existential crisis, but a very big crisis.